Hi, Victor.
Hi, Cheryl. We have Ron Smith with us today. Hello, Ron.
Hi, Ron.
Good morning.
Good morning. Um, we hear that our podcast for the repository, we interview people in our community who are trying to be on the right side of the public interest. And recently, we attended some events around our area, inclusive Venice, and we learned about Ron Smith and I would like you to introduce yourself instead of saying something that we might not know exactly.
Okay, well, I'm Ron Smith, it's kind of a common name, but I like to think I have an uncommon passion for the city of Venice. I'm running for the Venice City Council. I first moved here in 1981, so I've seen a lot of change here. My daughter was born here at Venice Hospital in 1982. She's a true native Venetian. Only 100 of those babies were born at the hospital before they moved the maternity ward up to Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I lost my wife here 3 years ago. She's buried in Venice. She was a big personality in the quilting community here. Called herself a fabric artist, and her quilt patterns are still sold downtown. Anyway, my love affair with Venice started in '81 when I came here and became the editor in charge of all local news for the Sarasota Herald Tribune. It was easy to fall in love with a well-planned city with low density, great pocket parks, a wonderful downtown, these gorgeous beaches. But it's all under pressure from extensive development, and that's got me involved in the politics. The city council is the one group that can uphold this legacy of our great city planner, John Nolan, who came up with this design for this city. And I want to uphold that legacy. I don't want us to be stuck in traffic in and around high-rise buildings. And so I'm working on that. I've been working with community groups, just trying to control unbridled growth and dark money that's coming into the city and trying to change the fabric of the place that we love.
Well, thank you. That's quite interesting because we definitely appreciate what you said regarding the overdevelopment and preserving what we know as a good quality of life versus and by the way, we are not against newcomers. However, it has to be balanced how much we develop the common grounds of our area. So
And Ron, again, I'm Cheryl, and thank you for appearing with us on our podcast. Like Victor said, we really work to present to the public individuals who have a message to get out to work with the public. And that's what we found about you. So can we ask a couple of very specific questions that I think will help people understand a little better who you are? For instance, can you tell us a little bit about Venice Unite?
Sure. Venice Unites is a group that rose up to fight land development regulations here that they thought were too lax. And that they were starting to collect petitions, signatures of voters in order to force a referendum on whether to throw out the growth regulations here in Venice. They were doing it at the same time I was running for city council race last year. And you may know that I ran, I got 49% of the vote. I didn't win, obviously, that election. But after the election, I predicted that Venetianites would collect enough signatures, and they needed 10% of all registered voters in the city in order to get a seat at the table, in order to have a referendum or a compromise with the city council. And I could sense a sea change, that people were standing up and starting to fight back against what they felt was, too much encroachment from commercial businesses and that type of thing on residential areas. And they did collect the signatures. And then I was honored because they hired me, my usual fee of $1, in retirement, and hired me to be their chief negotiator with the city council. And we were successful in getting 4 major concessions from the city council, changes made in the land development regulations, changes that preserved historic buildings, that defended wildlife, that limited building heights in Venice, and that made it more difficult for commercial businesses to encroach in residential neighborhoods. So that was a huge success, but it's not the only one. At the same time, I could just sense this sea change because another group rose up in Bird Bay, and they were opposed to a developer who was going to take back part of their golf course and build more houses on it. And they stood up and they came out in big numbers at Planning Commission and City Council, and they defeated that plan to take back their golf course views and their golf course they could play. And then another group rose up, the North Venice Neighborhood Alliance, to oppose a Pat Neal project where he wanted to build a 10-acre public shopping center on top of a wetlands that had been dedicated as open space. And that fight's still going on. They managed to convince the Planning Council that it was against the comprehensive plan to do that. The City Council voted 5-2 to allow it. They're getting ready to appeal that as an illegal development approved by the City Council. So there's a real mood change here, and that's what has me running again. I want to represent these neighborhoods.
Okay, and to follow up on that, we had a situation in the city where we're located somewhat in Northport. Victor's in Venice in West Villages. And in this particular instance, excuse me, if the same thing was going to happen, is that the city was actually going to build a campus, a government campus on what would encroach wildlife and wetlands. And it's in our comprehensive plan, so it would have violated our comprehensive plan. Isn't there something in your comprehensive plan that would have obviated Mr. Neal building this Publix?
The comprehensive plan does not call for that commercial development in that area. The zoning regulations do not call for commercial development in that area. And that's why that group is suing. They're asking a court to find that the council has defied its own comprehensive plan, its own zoning regulations. And that community feels betrayed, by a developer who had a plan and sold homes based on that plan and showed this area as open space and wetlands. They showed all kinds of pictures of the wildlife in that area, deer, roseate spoonbills, wood storks, all that populate that area and that they depend on for a view and for, less congestion. So they're standing up, they're fighting back.
It sounds like you have on the council 2 friends. You said it passed 5-2, so you would have 2 friends on the council, so that would make 3 friends of the people.
Right. I think we would need 4.
There you go.
So I read in the paper, and I try to stay close to this, the last one that you have mentioned, but also I do remember in the, learning about stopping the way they revamped the land development code, and trying to get your petition, and that, in my view, it is a success of people getting together at the grassroots level and trying to, but because you mentioned the magnitude of 10% is not an easy thing to be achieved, and it was done. That's the point I want to make, that people, when they are determined, they can do what is right. It is sad that what you mentioned about the last, the Neal development, that the zoning commission, which is proposed to leave the wetland undeveloped was not listened to by the board, by the commission, by the council, city council, because the name varies from one jurisdiction to another. So it's sad to see the people who are voted in to represent the people siding with special interests. That's a wake-up call that people should see what they should do in the next cycle of elections, because
the power they have.
they have a tremendous power. If someone is there and did not represent their interest, they should go to vote for someone they can trust.
Yes.
Because to me, that's the license we give to the people in this city governments
And
to make decision on behalf of us.
And
If that,
the fact that you're actually working with these groups already, you already have a relationship with them. It's like almost as if you're going into neighborhoods to reach out to neighbors.
Right,
Yes, so-
definitely neighborhoods is the theme of my campaign. I was asked by the late Nancy Dieter in a forum, what political hill am I willing to die on? And my answer was, it would be a hill where I'm fighting to protect neighborhoods. And the neighborhood has to stand up if we're going to succeed at all. They have to vote. They have to run for office. And they have to demand that the people that are elected listen to them on issues like this. No doubt.
And you
Yeah.
already have support from the neighbors and the neighborhoods, which is, that's exciting that, you have somebody who understands you gel with them and you're not just going in and saying, I want your vote and I'll promise you this and you're leaving. You're part of them and you're here since what you said, 1981.
Right, I'm very confident this time because I have the support of those folks. The endorsement of the group, the North Venice Neighborhood Alliance, the endorsement of the group Venice Thrives, which is the successor group to the Venice Unites, trying to carry on the legacy of John Nolan, and the support of the outgoing council member who's retiring, Dick Longo. So I do think people listening, there was a movie, Network, 1976, a guy named Howard Beale's a newsman. He hangs his head out the window and he screams, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I see a little bit of that going on right now. I think people have seen the effects of this overdevelopment, of unbridled growth. And developers do have rights to build, but we don't need to let them defy a comprehensive plan, take back open space, ask for special exceptions to build higher than what's called for in the comprehensive plan. There was a case here recently in Venice where a builder came in and he said, okay, I'm going to build just as high as I can here. I don't need any special exception, but what I would like is you to give me a waiver so I don't have to have all my parking spaces be 10 feet wide. I want them to be 9 feet wide. Why? I mean, why do you grant such a request? So that the car doors can ding each other when they open, so that you can have less pavement there and save some tar. It just seems like we have to impose the rules, and expect people to build under the rules that are in place, not get special permission like candy from an elected board.
So you pointed actually something very important. It's not that we, the citizen, want to get favors. We want the rules, which are already in the books. Yeah, that's why these alliances of citizens, because they know the comprehensive plan. The regulations are on their side, on what defines our neighborhood, and not to cater to people to make more money. And we all are agreeing that our capitalistic system is what we want to keep, but has to be a balance between interests. Who are the voters? We are the voters. We want our generation, future generation, to inherit from us something that we were good stewards of. So Thank you for doing what you do. I want to ask you, shift a little bit
Good.
the subject. I personally, as you notice, I have an accent. I came technically with $500 in my pocket that a friend in Italy, exchanged. I used to live in a communist country in Eastern Europe, and I'm very fiscally responsible.
Yes.
And in these times when we had tremendous real estate appreciation in our area, people are burdened, of course, property taxes. And I'd like to know your point of, millage rates. What should we do? Because the government finds way to spend our money if we don't tinker with the tax rates, with the millage rates. And many of the people in our area are fixed income or young families, they struggle with many expenses. So,
Right, but there's a law called Truth in Millage, and it was passed 35 years ago. And what it requires a city to do is report what their tax rate would have to be if they were to keep it even. In other words, they keep the tax rate the same, but the assessed values go up, and so your taxes go up. And so Truth in Millage says, okay, your tax rate was 5 mil, but because property values have increased, if you're going to keep the tax rate the same, you have to roll that back to 4.5. In the city of Venice, for the last 10 years, essentially the city has kept the tax rate the same. But someone showed me their tax bill the other day, and over the same 10-year period, their taxes doubled. It's possible only because the value of the property went up so much. It actually changed hands once, so the homestead didn't cap it at 3%. And the taxes have doubled on a particular piece of property and many pieces of property over a 10-year period. Same time, a politician can say, we haven't raised your tax rate. No, but you've raised my tax bill. And so I actually favor a tax rate cut. Not, we can't just gut the city budget, but the city's in very good shape financially, and it could roll back the tax rate a little to compensate for the increase in prices, which has essentially doubled taxes here in 10 years.
Yeah, I think we all agree. I mean, at least in this entourage here, that it is fiscally responsible to do that, given the situation, the appreciation of the real estate. And it's responsible for the city governments instead seeing, the printed press or, saying, well, we don't increase the tax rate. Well, they don't tell the truth. And that's the problem I have with the some of our servient media, where they don't explain to the people what that means. And it becomes like a piece of propaganda in the hands of our governments. So I think the light the press should bring to the table, it's still back there, and it's still keeping people in the dark, because we explain very well what is happening in reality. So thank you for stating your position on this, which is it's important for all the people of Venice.
It's not only important, it's vital. Because like you said, there's nobody giving the information out that you're giving out. Like Victor said, the newspaper is congratulating the councils and the city commissions for, well, they didn't increase taxes. Well, but you just explained, but they did. And so thank you for helping us with that. And if you don't mind,
Sure.
we have so many fun topics because the city of Venice is such a fabulous area, and I'm well versed in it. I only moved to this coast in 2002, so it's fun talking to a native. You're more native than me. So I appreciate the time that you put in, and you've obviously learned your area. You haven't been kind of a part-time resident. You like Victor, you learned your new area, and you learned your new state and the city, and I'm from Miami, and I'm from Miami 1958, and I can tell you it is very frustrating when new people come into the area. They make demands on the services, and they want things changed to make them the way that it was when they lived someplace else. But you acclimated, and I think that is just a fabulous thing that you did. So thank you for that.
Right.
And I can ask another question that has nothing to do with what we just talked about. We really want to get a lot of input from you. Um, there's a hospital called Venice Hospital, and I'm sure we're all familiar with Venice Hospital, and it shut down not too long ago. I really didn't follow it too much. I was just a little bit upset that somebody didn't step in and take over from the hospital. What's your position on that? I mean, it's closed, but so what's going to happen?
It's a tragedy that it's closed. I think I told you my daughter was born there in 1982. That city, it's at the center of the community, and it's sitting there vacant. And the city's got to get involved in making sure that something good happens with that property. Unfortunately, the people who bought it have not stepped forward. They're sort of a shell company, and nobody knows what their plan is. And the zoning in that area would allow for almost anything. So it's a real important piece of property. And all around it are these auxiliary medical facilities that used to, support and thrive with the hospital. We have that big new Sarasota Memorial Hospital out on Laurel Road here in Venice. And so some of these things are moving out there, and we're creating almost a blight right now around that hospital. Some good things can happen. There's a lot of hope that it'll be repurposed as either, an Alzheimer's facility or a long-term care facility or some sort of health facility. And it's really important we get involved in that and make sure something good happens there. It involves a lot of property in addition to the hospital, these other privately owned properties, but the hospital property when it was sold included other buildings nearby as well, a huge parking area, big parking garage, a big thrift store that was supporting the hospital where volunteers worked and raised funds to support the hospital and all that. So it's a major piece of Venice, and it's really important. What I was disappointed is that it seemed to be like a turf fight is why everything's happened there. Sarasota Memorial Hospital at one point wanted to take over the Venice Hospital when it was struggling, and nobody could agree to that. And I don't know why they couldn't agree. I mean, they needed to agree. Now that it's shut, Sarasota Memorial Hospital wanted to operate the emergency room because we're short on emergency room care here. They're overwhelmed at the Sarasota Memorial Hospital on Laurel Road. And they're doubling the size of the facility out there already because we have this vacant hospital in the middle of Venice. And the Venice Hospital had sued the Sarasota Memorial Hospital to try to keep them out of Venice. So it's like a territorial fight. So when the Venice Hospital was going to close, they didn't want to let Sarasota Memorial operate an emergency room there. But somebody needed to get these people to agree that that's what the city needed and not what their private petty fights were. And so it's sitting there idle. There's an emergency room here sitting idle that could be in play and that Sarasota Memorial Hospital is willing to do. The private owners of it said, no, we're going to do something relatively quickly with this property, but it's been sitting there empty now for a year. And all this time, it could have been the emergency room, could have been operating there. Sarasota Memorial was willing to run it. It was willing to run it and agree to get out as soon as a plan came forward to use the property. But nobody made that happen. And I think the elected officials of the city should have stepped in there and made sure that something good happened with that property.
Interesting enough, when I was in office in Northport, we tried to move forward with a CON, a certificate of need, before the state abolished the certificate of need, because we needed a hospital in Northport. So a few of us, myself, mostly my fellow commissioner Rhonda DeFranco, because she was a nurse at one time, we fought to get a hospital in Northport. And we, obviously elections happen, And this is very concerning that the people on the council in Venice doesn't seem like they fought to keep even an emergency room.
Right. I think more needed to be done there. I said at the time, I wish I could mediate that dispute. I sort of became the mediator for the fight between Venice Unites and the city council. And I would like to have been the one mediating between these hospitals so that something good would happen. And I was trained by the Supreme Court in mediating, and I got to work for a couple of years taking cases off of judges' dockets and trying to resolve them before they get full blown in court. And I was always able to get people to sit down and talk and reach a reasonable, accommodation. And I feel like people need to start with the belief that there is a solution. That's the way we do a crossword puzzle or a Sudoku or a Rubik's Cube. We believe there's a solution, and then we work and work and work until we find it. And that's what we need to do with these big problems that the city has. We need to believe there is a solution and work and find it. Not say this, oh, there's nothing we can do. Oh, it's a shame we can't address red tide. There's nothing we can do. We can't do anything about affordable housing. We're helpless. I'm tired of politicians who feel like they're helpless. They need to work and find solutions. That's what they're there for.
So I agree with you, and the city leaders should have, I understand the sunshine law, they cannot be involved in all of this, but they could have delegated to a task force, people who can have the time, the skills to engage all parties and come to a positive conclusion. Because what better than the healthcare support in the community can be added to the city if you vacated all facility which was there for dozens of years and suddenly it's a vacuum. So yeah, there is the North Venice, the Laurel Road, but that it caters to a wider audience, because you have the freeway there and it's easy accessible. But downtown people who from the age perspective of group, we are Venice. I am not in the city of Venice, just to make it sure as the jurisdiction. It's not that, but we consider Venice. We have the zip code, and I consider myself as a Venetian. Of course, I belong to the North Port as a city as well, but we are what we are as community, and serving that core of Venice, it's very important. And you underline that there could be a possibility, to reach a positive conclusion as long as you believe that there is a solution. And I believe that there is a solution.
It sounds to me from your conversation is that the council almost lacked leadership, because leadership is what presents solutions. And there has to have been, or continue to be, a solution to this. This is really alarming, because if the wrong people fill that building, you're talking about major infrastructure because of the streets, and it's 30 miles an hour on those streets. And if they allow the commission, the council allows the wrong development, it could be really catastrophic for the island, it seems. But anyway, not to get too morose, I do have another question. It's something a little bit more fun, and it's about the seaboard area. So
well, that's another big challenge for the city, and it's where the city council has to step up. The seaboard area is the area between the Intracoastal Waterway and the bypass. Go ahead.
Okay, explain to people what the area is. Where is the seaboard area?
Yeah, Seaboard is the name of a road through the area, but it's right along the Intracoastal Waterway, between the Intracoastal Waterway and the bypass. And it's a light industrial area is what it is. The city just bought a cement plant, which was the biggest and ugliest tenant in that area. And so it controls that. The city's public works department, all its trash trucks operate out of there. And the city would like to move that out further away from town. This is right beside the downtown. And it's an eyesore, and it's a collection of warehouses and things like that. The city's in great need for affordable housing. The downtown needs some relief. It's congested. And this area, the seaboard area, represents the best chance to build something great that complements the downtown and that upholds the standards of this great city planner, John Nolan, for walkability, for low density, with pocket parks and all that kind of thing. So it's a chance for the city to build something that will be a huge complement and consistent with the tenor of this city. But the city has to really get involved here. I support an idea that is championed by a former mayor, John Hollick, which is to have a community redevelopment agency in concert with the county, and that agency would benefit from tax increment financing. And that's a complicated concept, but basically it's that any new revenue from good things that happen there would go back into that area to pay for the infrastructure needed in order to support the redevelopment of the area. So basically, it's a commitment by the council that any new revenues we get from that area will go right back into that area until we get what we want in that area. And that's a concept that's worked in Bradenton. It's worked elsewhere. And I would like to see that. And I'm going to fight for that and keep promoting that so that we can make this a really nice addition to the city of Venice.
Mayor Hollick was talking about that when I was in office between like around 2014 even. And that would seem like it would have been one of his signatures kind of developments or legacies almost. And this is so exciting that you're talking about that. This is something that every city dreams of, what you're talking about. This is truly a dream project, and I'm so happy to hear that it's something that you support and that you articulated. So
I met with two of the big developers in the area in the last week that are interested in developing in that area, and the city just has to give them some help to make this happen.
Definitely, you know what you underlined. It's was a win-win in very many other cities. The same concept, to use this kind of the redevelopment areas that can attract additional funds as well as tax benefits and reinvestment in the communities, because technically Venice started, to be a city in the 20s, correct? The 1920s. And there is a conglomerate which was developed without too much, let's say, consideration for what we need right now.
So this is my turn to ask a question, and it is about red tide. So have at it, it's your stage.
I'm sorry, I think we broke up there. I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. The question is, tell us about red tide.
Okay, that's one of those big, tough issues that I get frustrated because politicians say, well, it's a bigger problem than just Venice, so there's nothing we can do about it. We can't solve it. And that's wrong. And it's of course, it's a huge issue. People live on the beach here. Our economy is based on it, and it's contributing. It's a disaster when red tide hits this coast, and it's worse here in Venice than it is in other places. When they say they don't know what to do about it, there was a task force appointed. As Victor talked about before, we need to use these task forces more to find solutions. And they came up with 8 recommendations on what needed to be done if we're going to address the red tide problem. And so far in Venice, we've only done 1 of the 8 things. And that's unforgivable. And it's expensive, but it needs to be done. We need to do everything we can. We need to be partnering with the Marine Laboratory and doing innovative things to try to figure out how to stop that red tide. The one thing that the city did and has finished doing was it passed a fertilizer ordinance, knowing that the fertilizers contribute tremendously to the algae problem there. And interestingly, that is now on hold because the building industry, the agriculture industry, lobbied the legislature and got the legislature to put in a freeze, a hold on all fertilizer ordinances until that issue can be studied further. So the city is not able to enforce its fertilizer ordinance, really, in my opinion, because the development industry didn't want to have a fertilizer ordinance. And so we've got to get the legislature to, lift that freeze, let us do it while you study it, rather than not do it while you study it. It's a big issue. The city also can control what comes out of its outfalls into the Gulf of Mexico. They have been studying redirecting some of those outfalls into the intracoastal, but they've got to keep the stormwater runoff less pollutant if they're going to have any hope. They need to take the lessons of this task force and start to implement them and believe that we can impact it and demand that the county do it and that our coastal neighbors do it and that that the farmers respect it on the river, etc. We just have to fight it. It's a health issue. It's an economical issue. It's an economic issue for the city. It's a very important issue.
Yes. Okay, so.
Yeah, it is an economic issue because technically we are a touristic area as well, in addition to, Venice has a healthy economy, it's services, but also there is some manufacturing facilities in conjunction with the greater Sarasota area. But the touristic part of it is impacted definitely by this red tide. And I know it's bigger scale than a city government, but small incremental, such as you mentioned, fertilizer control, it's definitely one of the root causes why this algae bloom, has been very difficult in the last couple of years. So
yes,
control
our businesses downtown here suffered greatly. And red tide is one thing we can help them with. We had Hurricane Ian that devastated businesses for a period last year. We had the COVID crisis that devastated businesses. And then we have red tide. We have got to address these things. And we're lucky that the businesses are hanging in there. But every year they've got a new challenge. And red tide will be back next year if we don't do anything about it, for sure.
yes.
Okay, so can we steg you into a whole different topic? And
Absolutely.
the topic I wanted to speak on is kind of the opposite of what Victor is going through in the city of Northport. They're trying to, West Village is trying to contract out of the city. But what about in Venice and perhaps annexing areas into the city? Do you have an opinion on that?
This is a big issue here. The city of Venice looks like a congressional district. It's gerrymandered and it winds across. People don't even know whether they're in the city or not. They think they live in the city, but they don't. Other areas are in the city and don't understand that they're in the city. People say, "Oh, the city of Venice, that's the island, right?" No, it extends all the way up to the hospital on Laurel Road. It goes across the interstate into big communities. And it's been poorly done. It's as simple as that. A developer comes in and says, I'd like to get annexed into the city. Then I get city water and sewer and I can build all these houses. Now, what exists now is an agreement that I like. It's an agreement with the county to allow annexation to occur in 7 areas, but no other annexation. And what those areas are, they would round off the border and make it, a more of a rectangle or a square where everything that's in that geographic area is in the city, but not some tentacle that goes way up here or off in another direction where it's difficult to provide fire or water or any kind of utilities or services. And So what's important here is we now have a plan on what will be the future borders of the city of Venice. And it's agreed to by the county. They will not oppose any new annexation in that area. It's agreed to by the city. They will not annex beyond that area. And now somebody has to enforce it. Because just like with the comprehensive plan, having a plan and then making, changes in it constantly to accommodate one developer, that doesn't work. And so when a developer comes in and goes, I know that they have that agreement only to do it here, but I'd like to build something here. We have to say, no, that's not the plan. We have a good plan and we have to enforce it.
Yeah, so I would just, because I know a little bit about annexations due to the fact that the West Villages are going through certain paths right now, and technically there is a law which defines the condition, to be contiguous and compact. What you describe, it is contiguous and compact, but sometimes, doing this zigzag, borders create, difficulties with services and so forth. The good part of what I see here in Florida, because I lived most of my life in United States and Michigan, is that the county acts as a mega city in the sense that provides city municipal services, and there are these interlocal agreements to help each other, the cities and the county to share resources or services in certain area. But the difficulty comes to the same thing if the borders, or I would say the periphery of the city it's not conducive to good management of services. So I understand your point of view, why you are saying whatever was decided and just make it smoother at the edges. And I would keep it very simple because different parts of the county, they are different set up. Yeah. I mean, I read about Siesta, what they wanted to do, but at the same time, I know what the West Villages want to do. And it depends on how many level of government you have. Like in West Villages, there is, the district itself, which is limited power unit of local government, can provide anything except zoning and police. Technically can provide water, can provide sewer and everything. So you have to look at the efficiency of the local governments. How many layers do I need? And in your case, it's one layer. It's just to be from the city or from the county. So I understand of course, has to be done in the best interests of the city and the citizen and the people living in those areas.
Just if it's okay, this has been such an illuminating conversation with you. Do you mind if I just kind of conceptualize what we talked about? Because it's very exciting, the things that you have presented. And from what I hear you talking about so far is that you have a real concern that Venice Hospital hasn't even been offered as an emergency room. That's an issue that you're very involved in and very concerned about. The redevelopment of the seaboard area, that is so exciting. It gives the city of Venice a whole new chance to bring in their concept in another area of the city, almost help rewrite and reshape history, bringing history back in. It's so exciting. Another thing you talked about was tax rollbacks, and you help people understand that when the media says that the council didn't raise taxes, that's not what you look for. You look for whether or not they rolled back the rates. And so people needed to hear that. Another thing was that you mentioned about red tide. How important is that? And these are all issues you've been fighting on. You've been part of this Venice Unite. You've been part of another neighborhood organization. You've been there since 1981. Your daughter was born there. these are exciting issues, all in one candidate, and it's been a long time since I've heard of one person that encompasses all these really exciting issues. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood what an exciting candidate you are.
Well, thank you. You're really kind to say that. I just love this city. I really do. I was here when the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus was here. I love telling the story why we have so many shark teeth. Um, all of our history here in Venice is exciting to me. We've had famous authors that are from here. We have movies that have been filmed here. I do trivia at a piano bar downtown, and I love to ask local trivia questions. I act in the local theater. I'm having a love affair with the city of Venice, and I want to preserve it for generations to come in some semblance of what we have enjoyed for the last 50 years.
Yeah, I think Venice is the jewel of this part of the coast. It's cozy, historic. How many city of its size has a beautiful downed area like Venice, a theater and a marvelous beach? So we are all proud of being close to Venice. And also we want to thank you, Ron, for your time. Hopefully we'll get to meet and talk again.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Cheryl. And come see us up here in Venice.
What is your contact information so that everybody knows how they can contact you?
Okay. Run for Venice Council. I'm on Facebook, but runforvenicecouncil.com is my web page. Run for Venice Council on Facebook as well. I guess that's the easiest thing. You can email me, my name, ronaldcsmith@gmail.com. And happy to hear from anyone.
This is excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for participating. We love talking to very exciting people like you. You really fill the bill. I really hope you do well in this election. And when is the election, by the way? When is voting?
November 7th, but voting actually starts by mail September 28th. It's amazing. That's why I'm working so early. The filing deadline is not until August 28 or 25. And just 1 month later, people are voting by mail.
Yeah, that's very compressed time.
But vote for Ron. Vote for Ron Smith.
Okay,
We
thank you.
definitely, truly are very much supporters of yours.
We wish you the best of luck,
Yes.
and I'm quite sure that people would appreciate your activity as a city council member, and I hope they choose the right candidate. Which in this situation, I like what I hear, and I support your ideas for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like what you're doing here with your podcast. So keep that up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck campaign.
Have a great day.